Hello guys, what's up? So this is me, Kurtzus, and for today's video lecture, we will be discussing all about Asian regionalism. So this is a topic on the word of regions. So the word is being divided into regions. So for today's video lecture, we'll be discussing on the Asian part. Then another would now be in terms of how the world would be stratified when it comes to global south, then global north. So today we'll be looking into Asia because some would argue that Asia is basically the engine or what we call as the springboard of globalization. It initiates the interconnection of nation states within the globe. Now, the main source that I'll be using would be Kimura, so globalization and Asia Pacific and South Asia. So this is actually a research journal, but we could also use other articles in order to understand what is Asian regionalism. Okay, now here is what may I cite from Ehito Kimura. So he stated that the Asia Pacific has become a key driver of global politics, stretching from the Indian subcontinent to the western shores of the Americas. The region spans two oceans, the Pacific and Indian, that are increasingly linked by shipping and strategy. Now, looking into the position of the Asian continent, basically we are strategically, or rather it gives a strategic point when it comes to globalization. Why? Let us first look into Asia as a continent. Now, basically, when we look into Asia, Asia is basically the Earth's largest and most populous continent. So we have the following data. So when it comes to area, population density, and looking into the economy, so basically Asia contributes a lot when it comes to globalization per se. So basically, it gives us now a point that Asia is one player when it comes to globalization. Now, Kimura argued that there are three relationships of Asia and globalization. So medyo madali lang naman to eh. This is actually one of the most easiest or organized lessons in this subject. So three relationships of Asia. So Asia as an object impacted by globalization, or we call it as externalist view. Asia as a subject pushing globalization forward as a springboard. Then lastly, Asia as an alternative to globalization, anti-global impulse. Now let us first define as Asia as an object impacted by globalization, or we call it as externalist view. So simply ang gustong sabihin ng externalist view that Asia has been transformed or influenced by external forces outside Asia and Pacific. So if you could check the diagram. So here is Asia, na influence yung Asia because of the following outside regions or forces. To give an example, the western region of the world has influenced Asia. United States influenced Asia. Other regions influence Asia, then Europe influence Asia. So look up from the term externalist, outside forces began influencing Asia. No? Now, paano na nga ba niya na influence? No? So I'll just pop out some words dito. No? So for instance, in terms of politics, so ano nga ba na influence ng outside region? Paano na-influence ng mga outside region ng Asia when it comes to politics. So when it comes to politics, for instance, sabi daw nila, Western nations influence or rather brought the concept of democracy when it comes to Asia. Ang argument nga daw dito democracy is a foreign concept when it comes to Asian regions. Kasi yung Asian regions natin is basically not fond, or rather they are more familiar with the authoritarian concept, no? Kaya when we look into our Asian states, China for instance, di ba? We have authoritarian yung concept nila eh. Or rather Japan, monarchy yung style nila, no? And here in the Philippines, we have this concept called constitutional authoritarianism that in a cultural point, kasi may legal at political point yun, no? In a cultural point, people in the Philippines daw, quote unquote daw, are more like to support authoritarian government compared to democracy. So when it comes to politics, more likely as Western countries has introduced democracy, the concept of democracy to Asia. What else? Voting, pwede din yan when it comes to politics. So talking about voting or suffrage, basically we have Western countries introduce yung voting system daw dito sa Asia. Now when it comes to economics, for instance, let us state European countries, your England, or rather United Kingdom and even the United States, they have now introduced industrialization, di ba? Quote and quote, saan nga ba nagsimula yung Industrial Revolution? Nagsimula sa Europe, no? And later was being developed or progressed by your United States. So ang context to dito is that they now introduce the outcomes of Industrial Revolution, technology, steam engine. They have now introduced this technology to your Asian countries. So aside from economics, kunyari, culture. So looking into culture, religion. Kunyari, di ba, religion. European countries, Spain for instance has introduced Christianity in the Philippines, di ba? So from Europe to Asia, particularly Philippines, yun as well in Korea, Japan, di ba? Wherein we have European missionaries. So tendency that is also an externalist view. So aside from religion, another concept when it comes to culture, kunyari sa culture would now be the way we eat, di ba? Using spoon and forks. Asia is known for Oriental, no? So Japanese, Koreans, and Chinese are known for eating chopsticks. The Europeans or even the United States brought the system of using fork and spoon. But aside from fork and spoon would now be kunyari, fast food. For instance, would now be fast food. So technically, United States introduced the system of fast food, no? So McDonald's, KFC, ano pa bang fast food, no? Amang inasal. Hindi, joke lang. Ay, ang hirap mag-joke dito. But basically, ganun yung context. So I hope na-realize nyo, no? So culture, food, ano pa, religion, education system, perhaps, di ba? Or rather language, di ba? English. Yan, it came from outside views. So again, externalist view, ang mga outside regions in Asia and Pacific will now influence Asia. Now, the total opposite would now be the second one, wherein Asia is being a subject, or rather Asia as a subject pushing globalization forward as a springboard. Now, the term springboard basically means engine. Ang ibig sabihin nito, kung walang Asia, more likely hindi natin mararanasan yung globalization ngayon. Because basically, Asia will now initiate globalization. So when you look dito guys, no? So we have Asia, it will now initiate yung konteksto ng globalization when it comes to the Western regions, Europe, other regions, Africa, Latin America for instance, or Antarctica if you want to. Then we have United States, no? So ganun, no? So Asia nag-i-initiate dyan. Now ito yung argument kunyari or example ni Ehito, Kimura, no? For instance, going back sa political example natin, no? Kung dun sa externalist view, Western regions daw introduce democracy in Asia. Asia daw introduce your civil service system. Now your civil service system has been developed in your ancient China, no? Kung naalala nyo si Confucianism, di ba? China has provided this very systematic way on how to organize your government. So yung civil service system has been introduced by China. What else? Modern day situation tayo, no? When it comes to economy, no? So economy. So how does Asia initiate your economic globalization or your global economy? For instance, ang daming provider ng Asia, no? Kunyari, when it comes to product, China is known to be the top importer of goods, di ba? Kaya may argument nga tayo dito eh. This is an argument, common argument sa United States, no? When they talk about economics. Alisin mo lahat nung made in China na product sa iyong household. And this is American household. Anong matitira? Basically, wala. Kakunti lang yung matitira doon, no? So, ganun, no? So, China, kunyari, it's the top importer of goods, di ba? Goods. Not services, but goods. Or for instance, when it comes to labor exports, no? When we look into labor exports, I'm looking into my notes para legit, no? Legit na pa, genuine. Now, looking into labor exports, for instance, Philippines is considered to be yung ranking ng Philippines when it comes to labor exports, medyo nag-range from 3rd to 4th. Some sources kasi iba-iba yung various yung statements nila, no? But basically 3rd to 4th, we are the 3rd or 4th largest exporters of labor services, no? So ito yung mga overseas Filipino workers natin, yung mga OFWs. And when you look into labor exports, nangunguna dyan would be China. China again would now be Asia. The second one would be India. The third would now be Philippines or arguable Mexico, no? Or basically, no? So when you try to check, so around top 10 or top Top 5, nandun ang China, India, Philippines. So again, these are Asian regions, Asian countries rather. So they will now initiate yung global economy natin, no? So ganun yung konteksto natin, no? So politics, economy, then last example dito sa as a springboard. When it comes to culture, recently we have the K-pop fever, no? Although I'm not a fan of K-pop, at wala akong pake actually. Kahit sugudin ako ng mga BTS Army, wala akong pakialam. But, sorry, that is my own bias. But looking into K-pop region, no, or K-pop culture, the genre itself, di ba? It is now a global phenomena. So basically, even the United States, even Europeans are fun singing songs that they do not understand. uh, But basically, ganun, nakita natin, no, nagiging ano na siya, nagiging springboard na siya when it comes to culture. Or for instance, when it comes to your early 2000s, no, yung Japanese, your anime, for instance, diba? Yan. So nagiging nangunguna na yung Asia. Actually, Asia would now initiate yung features ng ating globalization. So yan yung nakikita natin, no, when it comes to the second relationship. Now, the third relationship will now be Asia as an alternative to globalization. So, anti-global impulse. So, basically lang sinasabi nito, sige mag-globalization kayo. We have now our own feature. And that is basically Asian regionalism. So, when you look into the diagram, no, bahala na kayo, sasabihin ni Asia. Basta kami may sarili kaming trend, may sarili kaming mundo dito. No? Now, to give an example, for instance, when it comes to politics, so historical ano muna tayo. No? Nung panahon ng mga Japanese, panahon ng Hapon, World War II, Japanese initiated this program called your East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. So kung ano alala nyo yung sinakop tayo ng Mahapon, no? Yun yung initiate nilang program dito sa Pilipinas, or rather that is their main propaganda to why or justification on occupying their neighboring countries, no. So yun yung naging konteksto dito, no. So ang argument dito na mahapon Asians for the Asians, no, give us a chance to rule our Asian neighbors, no. Which is actually critiquing yung konteksto ng European colonization, no, or your European colonialism. So bakit kayo lang may karapatan, kaming mga Asians din may karapatan kaming mamuno sa sa Asia din, no. Just to give you an idea, no, no need to emphasize more, no need to emphasize. Then another thing, no, when it comes to politics, si Prime Minister Muhammad Mahathir of Malaysia, 'di ba? In his rhetoric, he argued that we focus rather on our regions. So, yun yung konteksto din, no? Then, in terms of political uh, econ aspect, di ba, we have this organization called your APEC. Now, yung APEC niyan is basically Asian Pacific Economic Caucus, Corporation rather. Yung APEC. So basically we have the APEC. Ngayon itong APEC na to, hindi lang mga Asian Pacific countries yung kasali. Makikita din natin kasali din United States and other Latin or North or even North American countries. So may ginawa ngayon na East Asia Economic Caucus. So this is only exclusive for Asian countries. So nakikita na natin dito na yung impulse, no. So they become resistant to globalization at nagiging exclusive lang siya for Asian countries. As well, medyo political yung ano nito eh, yung Asia, yung itong anti-global impulse. You could also see some terrorist groups, no, such as your Jemaah Islamiyah. So they are now resisting your imperialistic symbols or your imperialistic powers such as your United States, no, and adding a little bit of religion and a little bit of Asian values, no. So Jemaah Islamiyah. Then when it comes to economy, may I just read it here. We have what happened in Santisok, Thailand, which they have their own monetary system called your BIC. So yan yung nakikita natin, no? So they trying to get rid of any foreign values. So yun, no? So I hope medyo na-gets natin, no? So again, may tatlong konteksto tayo as impacted by globalization, externalist view, pushing globalization forward as a springboard, then as an alternative to globalization, anti-global impulse. So I hope madali lang yun, no? So thank you guys. See you.